Well, my birthday socks are now done. It took just over a month to knit them, and they were almost done for my birthday. But this story really started a long time ago, back in the dark ages of the last century. Sometime in the 1990s, I visited a craft fair where I came across a booth that was selling sock yarn, self-striping sock yarn specifically. I was intrigued by the idea of knitting a pair of socks, and especially doing color work without actually having to do color work, so I bought a couple of skeins of yarn. It came home with me, where I promptly let it sit and sit and sit, and it sat for many years. During that time I had a baby, then I had another baby. My babies grew into teenagers, and one day I saw a notice for a sock knitting class, so of course I signed up. By this time I knew that I wanted to knit my socks from the toe up, 2 at a time. I know myself well enough to know that I wouldn't be able to knit 2 matching socks if I didn't do them both at the same time. I told the teacher about my sock yarn and my desire to knit them both at the same time, and she said that I needed to start at the beginning before diving into the 2 at a time at the same time. So I listened to her, and I knit my first pair of socks with chunky yarn on larger needles, and those became a birthday present from my husband. I promptly went home and bought more sock yarn. This time I promised to knit my daughter a pair of socks for her birthday. The new sock yarn joined the old sock yarn, where it sat and sat and sat for several years. And then came that fateful year, 2020. Even before the world started to shut down that year, I had made a decision that I was going to spend the year finishing things that I'd started. At the beginning of the year, I attended some knit nights at a local brew pub where someone said something that made me understand how you could knit 2 socks together at the same time. She was making herself a pair of wrist warmers out of hand-spun yarn, so after the session I went home and I dug out some of my own hand-spun yarn and made myself a pair of wrist warmers. Now I felt like I was equipped with enough knowledge to knit a pair of socks, both at the same time. I promised my daughter again that I would knit her a pair of socks for her birthday. As her birthday approached, I finally cast on that pair of socks, both at the same time. I knit and I knit and I knit. And this time she did indeed get a pair of socks. They were a bit late for her birthday, but they were finished. I promised my other daughter a pair of socks for her birthday. The problem was her birthday was only a few days away at that point. So I cast on, and she too got a pair of socks in 2020, just in time for Christmas. Now that left me just over a month till my next birthday. I still had more yarn left, and I wanted to make myself a pair of socks as well for my birthday, which was barely a month away at that time. I cast them on, and as you see, I do in fact have a pair of socks, and they were finished not too long after my birthday. And although these socks are finished, I'm not quite ready to cast off this story. That yarn that I bought back in the 1990s, it's still waiting to be made into something. Maybe 2021 will be its year.